Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. We are super excited that you are here with us tonight, this afternoon, today. It's Friday. I don't know what time I'm in. I don't know what time zone I'm in. But before we get started, let me do some housekeeping stuff because you guys know housekeeping is important. You're with us today. Next month, we are having the amazing Heather with us, and she has some holiday hijinks up her sleeve. I don't know what. I don't know what she's talking about. All I know it's going to be amazing, and you should be there. Mark your calendars, double check the dates. Normally, we're on the second Friday in December. It is going to be the third Friday, so December 19th. Just be aware of that. Also, if you're not a member of Site, what is wrong with you? Why are you not a member? You should be a member. We've got so many wonderful benefits. Our newsletter, the networking, the ITP designation, train the trainer, all of these great, wonderful things. So now is a perfect time to go to your supervisors and managers and be like, hey, for next year, I want to be a member of Site. So really think about that. If you have questions, just reach out to most of us on this call. We can tell you how great it is. We did just end an amazing session of Train the Trainer. So if you're thinking about doing that, be on the lookout for new sessions for 2026. And don't forget to check out our swag store. Get you some stickers or t-shirts or whatever you need. And follow us on YouTube. Like and subscribe. I love saying that. Like and subscribe. All right. Today, we are having a panel discussion overcoming real world constraints. And I'm not talking about when your cat jumps up on your Zoom call, people. Real world constraints that hurt us in our industry and training. The panel is going to be facilitated by Jen Brockwell, and our members are Zarin Buchanan and Greg Golson. So with that, Jen, I am turning it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Engaging and amazing, Ruthie. I love the fact that you put the word amazing in front of my name on the slide. I'll take it. Needed that today. Thank you all so much for being here. And today, feel free if you would like to chime in, if you have ideas, if something strikes a nerve. I really did see this as being somewhat of an open conversation. As a matter of fact, when I came up with this idea, I didn't even really know what to call it, but I was thinking about the fact that every time we do webinars, every time we teach, and every time we attend a webinar or a class or what have you, we talk about best practices and what works the best and the best way to do this and the best way to do that. Well, a lot of times these things that drive engagement or these things that we utilize to bring home our points and to train other people are either expensive or not allowed by regulators, or we have tech constraints. And all of a sudden I thought, we're all operating in a not perfect environment. So how are we navigating this? How do we get around it? What are we doing? And immediately I had Zarin and Greg pop up and say, oh yeah, we're in the trenches and we have great ideas to share. So I am so grateful for the two of you to join me. So I'm going to throw out, I'm not going to go through all of the questions that I sent you, but I am going to throw out the very first one because it is what we're talking about. And that is, what is the most stubborn constraint that you wrestle with today? Be it budget, tech, compliance, culture, time. Are you working with technophobes? Is the thermostat broken in your office? And how does this show up in real life?
Go ahead. Okay. Well, Jen, everything you said, all of that every day. But if I had to narrow it down, I would say lack of resources for me is the biggest one. I actually named two of them because I couldn't decide, but I'm a one-person department. I'm tasked with training 100 people, um, and those people range from small commercial sales folks to service team to large commercial to personal lines, and then even benefits. So I'm blessed to have a background in all those areas, but I'm not certainly a professional in every single one of those spots. So, some of them I am, but so just to simply, how do I manage with that kind of a project? How do I manage that? How do I prioritize that? And then the second one related is unrealistic expectations. I think a lot of managers, leaders they don't understand anything about what it takes to develop and deliver good training. They don't understand educational principles. And so sometimes I run into unrealistic expectations from them. But that's related to the lack of resources. I'm, one guy trying to do 1,000 things. So
I think one of the biggest challenges faced not only for inside companies but in organizations, having to send out 4 doodles to try to find a time when people can actually meet. We've gotten so used
yep.
to having meetings to have meetings about meetings that it's really hard to figure out, uh, what's really the priority. And letting people know this training internal professional development is important. It's just as important as doing other things because we build on that. But it's really, finding that having people not only show up at meetings, but being able to focus while they're in meetings, and get the respect from people that they're not have the screen here and 2 phones on each side, if you know what I mean. So it's getting the respect from everyone else. That training is important.
Yeah, I own that as well. You said respect a couple times, and I think that's a huge part of it.
Well, let me ask you, Zarin.
Yeah.
One of the first things that you said was lack of resources.
Yeah.
So is that in terms of, well, I know time, that goes without saying, but are you talking about budgetary?
Yeah, yes and no. For our purposes, I don't need anything very fancy, so we're probably okay that way. Mostly time and assistance. I wear a few hats, and this, that don't relate to this. I'm also quality control. I also handle all the licensing for our agency. So, there's a fair amount of like processing stuff that I do that isn't really that anyone could do. And so that's that's part of it for me, is wearing these multiple hats, but mostly it's just time and me being spread a little bit thin for what needs to
Have
happen.
you discovered any hacks or shortcuts or anything helpful to get you through this?
Yeah, I have. I took notes, so if I look away from the screen, it's because I'm looking at my notes here. I organized some thoughts. The biggest thing for me is time management is the biggest factor. I have to be really strict about my schedule. I have to be able to prioritize. So when I'm prioritizing, I'm looking at 4 things. What does my immediate boss, the person who determines my bonus and my raise, what do they want? They're going to get delivery first. Okay. So selfish of me. Guess what? That's the world that we live in. Number 2, are there deadlines that have to be met? Is there something with I have to have this training out for HIPAA for our benefits folks by a certain deadline. Okay, well, that's obviously going to take priority. After I've hit those 2 urgent factors, then I'm looking at biggest impact. What does the most good? What's going to affect the most number of people and make the biggest difference to our agency, make us the most profitable, save us the most time, satisfy our clients the most, whatever the goal is. And then I'm looking at squeaky wheels. So when it comes to prioritization, then the squeaky wheels, they finally get heard if I get the other things done. Then I'd use time blocking. I like to keep my inbox empty or as close to empty as possible, so I'm not overwhelmed just by looking at a big inbox. So I put it where it goes quick, and then I have used the time blocking to go address each area. I don't reinvent the wheel. If somebody else has designed some training and I need training on that topic, I'm going to buy that training, or I'm going to. So we have a lot of carriers. For example, Cincinnati Insurance has wonderful training on. They have a whole LMS that I can access on coverage. It's free to us. It ticks all the boxes. And so I utilize that a lot. So there's no reason for me to rebuild coverage training in my LMS. They already have it. I just link to theirs. And then AI. What can I give to AI? So if I take those things, prioritization, time blocking, keep my inbox empty, don't reinvent the wheel, and utilize AI, that helps a ton. Those are my hacks.
I like it. Greg, aren't you traveling a lot?
I'm actually in the Philadelphia airport right now, and the quietest place I found, I had to buy a glass of wine to sit in, by the way. It's all good. But I think, yeah, travel, I'm not traveling a lot, but, when it's being able to be available when you are traveling, and I think one of the things that Duran pitched out on was really interesting is learning to cater our training, not just for the audience, but to the, like, training Gen X is totally different. Sorry, Ruth, but training Gen X is totally different from training for millennials, making it engaging for people and convincing the people that you work for that it's important to have training that meets the audience versus what we've had this slide deck, Zarin, for 20 years and it's always done the job. I'm sorry. You're going to have kids doing this pretty quick during your training if you do it that same way. So part of it is convincing people to do training in a way that engages your audience.
Yeah.
So I'll put this out to the two of you. What about technology? Have you had any technology issues?
No, I'm pretty tight with our CIO and VP of tech. And when I need something, I just tell them what I need and I usually get it. So that has not been an issue for me. What has been an issue tech related has been people who I had to teach someone how to right click a mouse the other day. They've been in the business for 20 years. I'm like, you got to be kidding. And so that's the issue is illiteracy. Yeah. It's like sometimes we'll get employees and we have to train them up to like a 9th grade level of using tech before they can even learn insurance. And that is really tough.
So are you in a one-on-one training environment for that, or is that in a class setting?
No, that has to happen one-on-one. That can't happen in a class setting. But it doesn't happen very often. It's just when it does, boy, it is a headache.
I get that.
That's my tech issues. So
when I mention tech, our company uses also acknowledging that not everyone in this room has signed an NDA about what I'm about to say, but I'll have to come for you. I'm just kidding. But we use a platform called On24, which is sort of like Zoom but different, and it's not intuitive, and it has a lot of glitches, and if you don't set it up exactly correctly. So we've had a number of situations where, I'm just talking along and apparently I've been frozen the whole time, or my slide doesn't keep up with my voice, even though I'm hitting go. Like what they're seeing does not align with what I'm seeing. And I think we fixed a lot of it, but it really detracts from everything that you work so hard to present, So that's why I asked, because it's been a
Yeah,
source of
yeah, a lot.
frustration.
Yeah, a lot of training in 2025 is making sure you have a backup plan. Um, in my prior job, we're hosting a session for about 600 people, which I'm the leading and introducing the group. And 2 minutes before the session started, the construction crew cut the cable line across the street.
Oh,
And I mean, I've got the CEO of our company on, 500 people, and right away I had my hotspot ready, you know, and and said and texted someone, said, please, you run the slides, I'll get on as soon as I can. But it's making sure we have a plan B, C, or D even sometimes, because especially with all this we're doing remote.
yeah. Yeah, that was one of your questions, Jen, was what's your plan B when a platform melts down mid-session?
Just because I asked the question doesn't mean that I have an answer to it for myself.
Right there. You can't see it because of my background. It's my phone. That's my plan B. I've had lots of times where things have happened, like Greg suggested, where, the power goes out or something, and I'm sitting here at home in my home office doing this training to 20 or 30 people. And what I do is I always have a backup admin for the meeting. So I always have someone in the meeting that can continue it if I drop. And then if I drop, I immediately hit my phone, join it on my phone. And sometimes I don't get to share my slide deck and we just get to talk about stuff. That's my plan B.
Yeah, well, at 11:57, the airport internet dropped off, and I jumped on my phone. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's it. There you go.
What you have to do. So I'm going to catch us up with some of the comments. We were talking about buy-in earlier in respect, and Guy was saying buy-in is what I often struggle with. Ruth says, I find when I can relate anything to dollars, it makes the buy-in happen more easily. Like this class will reduce E&O claims and save us money, that type of thing. Guy says, true, but mine is that leaders that feel like something isn't worthwhile, then it's not promoting or supporting, etc., which makes sense. Susan said, things that I struggle with. Departments involving me in projects way too late for me to have full impact and not recognizing the amount of work they're asking for by next week. Been there. Trend in the industry of promoting people with no training, development, or ID background to overseeing training. And yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, and one of the things I like to think about when I'm putting together training, and knowing as we're moving into the air, a lot of people have to be upskilled, straightforward. So giving people the buy-in ahead of time, what you're going to get out of this, even if it's one or two things. But another term I like to use too, a lot of the training we have now is looking backwards a little bit or teaching people regular things. But I like the term, instead of feedback, feed forward. We're giving people skills for the future, letting them know this is 6 months from now, you're going to need this. And we're setting a platform that this is going to build on, similar to basic algebra to integral calculus kind of thing. If you're letting people know this is going to help you to the next step and we're feeding you forward versus giving you feedback from something you may have done wrong, I think people tend to want to attend that session because they want to keep up with their peers also.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. Telling them ahead of time what it's going to do for them. Jen, you asked in one of your lightning round things, you said a favorite non-training discipline you steal from. I wrote down sales, and I spent a lot of my life in sales. That relates directly to the buy-in discussion. Somebody said if you can frame it in terms of money, it greases the rails a little bit, and I think that's true. One of the things I've learned is that we're dealing with humans. We're not dealing with logical creatures. And so if I think closely about who I need to get buy-in from, now I can do this in a small organization. Well, probably smaller than some of you guys who are with carriers, but if I think about who I need to get buy-in from, and then I think about their goals, and I try to link whatever I'm doing to their goals, How is this going to make their job easier? Sometimes I think that is more important than money. If I can make this person's life a little bit easier, they'll spend a lot of money to make it happen. And so that sales aspect is huge for getting buy-in. You just have to consider the individuals you're working with.
That's great advice. So what about a failure, a glorious failure you're willing to share and the lesson you now reuse? Anybody brave enough? You don't have to. I don't even mind going first.
Go ahead, Darren.
Okay. Before I answer this, how many of you guys are with carriers? Okay, I worked for 10 years with a carrier as an underwriter, so I can say this stuff because I lived that. In 2025, I tried a new thing. We do monthly training meetings for each department. And I decided I wanted to try to make our carrier visits to our agency worth something instead of just having the sales rep come in and give us a hit list and ask what we were doing for them. I wanted them to educate us deeply on general insurance concepts and then their product. So I set up a year in advance. I booked them every single month, and I gave them talking points. And I said, you get 45 minutes to talk on the talking points. Your purpose is education. Maybe you're talking about general liability exclusions or something like that, or contractual liability and additional insured status or something like that. And then I said, the last 15 minutes, I want you to sell your product. Okay. So I wanted to give them a stage to sell their product. Here's what happened. Some did great. Most did okay. But many just completely ignored the talking points. Some even completely ignored the topic and just came in and pitched their product. Well, my staff they felt like I had wasted their time. They weren't very happy with me. So the lesson I learned was, number one, don't delegate education to someone who isn't an educator. And number two, which we always knew, sometimes the regional reps for carriers, they have their goals and they're going to meet those goals no matter what. So that's, but mostly just if I have to assign a mentor to someone, my first priority is find someone who can teach. My second priority is how good are they at their job. So there's my failure and what I learned.
My biggest failure wasn't a training moment. I was a trainer at the time, but I was interviewing for a job, and I moved down from 100 people down to 5, down to 2. And for some reason, I had an allergy to something one evening, and my lip dropped down about like this. And I go to get a steroid shot, and they actually gave me 3. I probably should have called my wife to drive, but I didn't. I get in my car. I punched my phone to call Rick, my best friend. It's Rick. I can't believe it. I'm just about to get this new job, and guess what? This isn't Rick. This is your boss, Richard.
Oh.
And I'm glad this happened because we'd had no idea you were leaving. And it turned into me to training moments to always be where you're at, always know who and make sure you're not hitting Richard instead of Rick on the phone. But it reminded me moving forward that I need to totally be in the moment. And whenever I'm speaking somewhere, I like an hour of power. If I'm a keynote or speaking somewhere, I want to know the room the day before. I want to know the audio. I want to know the video. I want to know what the tables are going to look like. It's going to be engaging. So it really taught me to prep better for my training. and to not just have a plan A or plan B, but be in the moment the whole time. That's it. The phone's put down an hour before. If someone needs to reach me, they're gonna have to tap me on the shoulder, you know?
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm with you. My biggest failure was something I did over and over and over again until I figured out that maybe it was time to learn something, and that was hiring. I used to own an agency. I owned an agency for 17 years, and I had this idea that that I could take someone, and if they had the right attitude and motivation, that I could teach them insurance. That anyone can learn insurance. And if you give people the right tools and resources and love and pats on the head, that they will blossom. And I had to come to the very disappointing and frustrating conclusion that not everybody wants to blossom. And you really can't teach insurance to just anyone. So, yeah. And it's funny, in my current role, I talk to my boss all the time about how I never want to be in charge ever again. And I never want to hire anyone ever again because I love everyone. I think they're great, and they will come into this organization and we'll pat them on the head and we'll all sing kumbaya and they'll know insurance. No, sure will not. So, yeah, there's that. So, if you could ban one buzzword, Susan says, insurance is our passion. Apparently, it's not everyone's, right? So, if you could ban one buzzword for 2025, what would it be?
We'll let Greg take this one.
Mine's not from 2025. It's just that whole put a pin in it, or yeah, we'll put a pin in that. We'll put a pin in that. That to me is dismissive. And
I have to think about that one, and so I don't get sent to Arthur for an HR moment first, okay?
In the chat, Chantel says circle back or pivot. Mine's if you have preteens, you'll get this. Mine is 6'7".
so I see that a lot. What does that mean?
Nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't really have a business buzzword that I would ban. Because I just don't have it. I'm pretty easygoing. Nothing really bothers me too much.
Chantel says circle back, pivot. I use put a pin in it because I'm usually coming back to the idea, as in put a pin in this. Remember it. I'm coming back to this idea. Well, I guess my issue with this is the people who say this to me do not return to the issue at hand. Mm-hmm. That's the point of my frustration. It's most likely it's to get me to shut up.
Yeah.
Which is generally not successful from any source. Well, yeah, whatever. So no one has mentioned compliance. Or maybe that is more of a challenge for me because I'm dealing with 51 different regulatory agencies.
Oof.
I just filed an outline for a CE class recently called hyper-personalization. Is this the death of risk pooling? I think this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But in this class, I was talking about the erosion of consumer trust, because when you get down to hyper-personalization, you might have, like if you're using geospatial AI on one resident, maybe their rate goes up and the person next to them doesn't. You don't know. And so you have this potential for the erosion of consumer trust. And I mentioned the word psychology. And my outline was returned by Arizona, Michigan, New Mexico, and I'm missing one other, because I used the word compliance. I'm not compliance, psychology, because they thought that I was talking about sales psychology and how to be a better salesperson. No, did you read the rest of the outline? Okay, so I had to change the wording. And so compliance is something, Ruth says compliance is a nightmare word. So, yeah.
And
Kristen says, I'm with you, Jen. Follow-up is so important. If you don't come back to it or at least follow up with an email afterwards, you lose trust. Oh, talking about put a pin in it. I do use put a pin in it when I don't know the answer and I need to research and get back to them. Ruth says they probably used AI to scan your outline, and you're probably not wrong at all.
yeah, compliance is such a tough issue. When I was at JSL, we did sessions in Europe, we did sessions in Canada, all 50 states, and some of the states like Illinois have fines up to $1,000 per certificate you turn in late. In the state of Florida, if you hold a 40-minute class versus a 50-minute class, you could be fined $5,000. And guess what else? Your name is put on a quarterly bad list in between an agent who embezzled money and a public adjuster who stole money. So it can be really tough in some states if you don't know the compliance. And that's just strictly from a CE session,
That is wild.
Yeah.
It is wild. Goodness. So how about the culture, the people you work with? We were talking, and we touched on this a little bit earlier with buy-in, but what about technophobes, folks with a bad attitude, or following up on your training and getting people to utilize what they've been taught? You train on a new methodology and you go back and see that everybody's doing it the old way. None of this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zarin.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
One of my passions is helping people thrive in the AI era, and part of that is adaptability. And part of adaptability is to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think if you have to teach people that concept sometimes, and as show them what the buy-in's going to be from using this new technology or this new process, and give them the why behind it. But teaching people how to unlearn things is really tough,
Yeah, I agree with that. That's probably the biggest struggle that we have, is teaching people how to unlearn, how to stop using. I mean, we have this beautiful, in our agency management system, we have this beautiful system to track renewals, and I still got guys using spreadsheets, and you know that they're going to drop accounts, that there's going to be somebody that gets forgotten because it's all manual entry instead of automated. So it is a struggle. A couple things that have helped me with that, and these are not magic bullets, okay? They do not solve the problem, but they do help. Is when I'm doing my training, I really try to, if I'm teaching a methodology, I'm gonna keep my training topics narrow. So I might spend an hour on something that might take someone else 15 or 20 minutes. And the reason I do that is because half of that time is application. It's them trying it out. So as much as I can get them actually in the trenches doing the thing I'm teaching in the training meeting, that major increases buy-in, because they see that that it's applicable. If they don't see it applies to them, then they're not gonna do it. That's number one. Number two is I have to have teeth, and I don't have any teeth. I don't have any authority. I don't have any ability to enforce anything. Well, not in my training role, not with that hat. I do with some other hats. So I have to work very closely with the direct reports and have great relationships with them. And so that I can monitor people. And if I see that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I can go to the direct report. I just had to do this week, by the way. I can go to the direct report and say, look, this person's been through 3 trainings on this. They're still not doing it. This is not a training issue. It's insubordination. It's a complaint.
I agree.
So,
And Jen, there's a reason I named my consulting firm Up to Now, because I tended to answer people's questions about, we've always done blank, then blank. And I said, up to now. Now we can't do so and so. I said, up to now. So, I love answering questions with that to introduce them to the name of my consulting firm. Yeah.
I love that.
Or we did it this way at the other carrier.
Oh.
Mhm.
Up to now.
Going forward, ... So how about hard left turns? When your organization is going this way, and then there's someone in the corporate food chain that decides we're going to go this way. When I owned the agency, I was a captive agent. And normally when I teach, I don't talk about carriers, because the minute you mention a carrier, you know, people have very hard and fast ideas about that. But I was an Allstate agent. And Allstate was notorious for hard left turns. So they would train you on something that they wanted you to do, for instance, quoting platforms. You know, we're going to do this quoting platform. It's great. And then they would realize how many bugs were in it, and they would do a hard left turn and say, okay, only auto is on this platform. Everything else is on this platform. So things changed all the time. And the trainers always looked like they were just at their wits' end, you know, strung tighter than a banjo wire. And so I was wondering if you faced this, you know, where you're trying to get everyone heading in this direction, and then all of a sudden your organization decides to go that way.
It's you know, and one of the first things I like to do when that's happening is actually create a new glossary for people. Because we're so big on initials for certain things, you know, that when you join one firm, you know, BI means business income to one side, it means bodily injury to another, even among yourselves. But getting people used to these terms, like learning a new language, moving forward, this is what this term means in our company, you know, and just getting people at first learn how to speak the language of what that is, so that we're all on the same page.
Oh, yeah. And what about AI? Is that additional insured, or is that AI, artificial intelligence? But I was a BI adjuster for years before I took over my family's agency, and I cannot interpret BI as business interruption. It's not
You could
humanly.
at JS Held when they're 200 forensic accountants, okay?
True. Let's see. Ruth says, in Mississippi, I had to refile all my CE classes during COVID because we went from traditional to online. Compliance is angry face. Guy says, ooh, I run into that all the time. Folks don't realize that learning is not just on the trainer. It's a combination of the trainer, the supervisor manager, and the learner. Getting that support once you release your person into the wild. My role is to educate. It's the manager's role to ensure that the learner is implementing it and supporting the education. And it's the learner's role to put their education and experience to use. Yeah. Susan says, and then audit. Yeah, so I'm going to disagree, Guy. It's all on you. If they don't utilize that information, that's your fault. Just kidding.
Sound like
I'll
my
take
boss
that, Jen.
sometimes.
All right. That's how some of our supervisors look at it. I mean, I don't know how many times, just like you, Aaron, how many times they keep coming to me going, you need to train this person. They're not getting it. They're not getting it. And it's not an issue of them not getting it. They know the process. It's the fact that their manager's not holding them accountable to do the process or to follow what they've been taught. Because I don't have any role. I don't have any authority over forcing them to do this.
Right.
So have either of you had a conversation when someone comes back to you and says, we have a training issue, or this person is not implementing this and it's all training's fault? Have you had that uncomfortable conversation with management, and how did you handle it?
I have.
Yeah. How did it go?
And fine, I did exactly that. And the what I kind of iterated is so I'm technical training for our claims team. We have a head of learning and development, and that is our professional development. So, you know, having the hard conversations as a manager, management training, all of that stuff. So he and I talk often, and he's the one who mentioned that, you know, learning's like a 10, 20, 70. You know, it's a 10% on the educator, the trainer, It's 20% on the management leadership, and then it's 70% on the learner, and that's where that kind of comes from. And that's exactly what I talked to him. When I have a repeated issue and somebody comes back to me and says, hey, can you go over this with them again? They're not getting it. They're not doing it right or properly. I'll meet with them. I'll make sure that they understand the process, walk through it with them. And if they do, and it's clear they know the process, or they know it and it's just a matter of implementing it or using it and not using it properly, then that's when I go back to them and I say, look, guys, I've had the discussion. This is not a training issue. This individual knows this. They know what they're doing. They have the education. I've imparted that. They've taken that in. They've embraced that. But it's on your role as their manager to work with them to make sure that they're implementing it. If you're not, basically, I can't be the authoritarian here. It's you who have to oversee this person.
Yeah,
And it went well.
yeah. Interesting, guys. So I remember, I would say 87.9% of the time that happens, the person telling you the person didn't get the training didn't promote buy-in themselves, and they didn't attend the training, the manager or supervisor. And by them not showing that it's important to be at that training or to be engaged during it, their team says, well, my boss didn't really, they don't have to know that much about it because we're actually doing the work, they're managing it. But if you have the buy-in from the management and they're at the training, I think it tends to note, this is important, we're going to do this. Having them in the room telling people ahead of time if possible, even via their remote, this is really important. Here's why we're doing it. Buy-in. And by the way, this is not voluntary. This is mandatory.
Yeah. Yep. The other thing I've had when I have those conversations, and they say this person isn't getting it, it's a training issue. Many times I've said, okay, well, what about the 30 other people that were in the meeting that are getting it? Do I really need to sit down with this person? What about the excuse me. What about the 3 other things we've trained them on and they haven't gotten that either? And so you just have to look at the situation and be willing to call a spade professionally, politely, but firm. Call a spade. And then also insist on being treated as a professional in adult learning and not as an order taker. You are the expert in your craft. And so you don't have to say you will treat me this way, but just by your actions, by the way you speak and interact with folks, just carry yourself as that expert, and that will bleed off into people. Most people will sense that and treat you accordingly.
Yeah, and you'll find out too, that same person that's not getting it is probably already on a PIP plan and trying to find somebody else to blame it on, potentially. They're generally struggling in many other areas too.
And I'll start you're saying, Aaron. So when I first started, my position was new for my company 3 years ago. And when I started, I was very much a yes person. They come to me, hey, we have a training issue. I'm like, all right, great. Let me work on that. I'll do that. And then as I got further into it and got more confident in the role with the company and the company I work with, I started pushing back when I would come with a training issue. And I'd be like, all right, where's this coming from? I want to know where this is coming from. What's driving this? Is this coming from underwriting? Is this coming from claims? What's the precipice for this? What was the triggering issue that caused the need for this training? And started pushing back instead of just saying yes, because what I was finding is I would develop something and it wouldn't really be addressing what they were trying to address. It would be a stopgap. It'd be a Band-Aid. Yep. And until I understood what they really wanted. So I've started pushing back now. So now they know when they come to me with a training request that they need to have a little bit more to it. And I need to know a little bit more about the background about what's driving this change or what's driving this request for training.
Yeah. And if you have that conversation with them as a peer, okay, or if you're not a peer, at least as a professional, that leads you into what Ruth says. Ruth says it's important to review our training style and material. Are we missing something? We also have to have that intellectual integrity to be able to say, yeah, you know what, I might have missed something here. So you have to, I love that you ask them where this is coming from and you probe and try to figure out why the issue is what it is, because that way you can really clarify, is it you or is it them?
Yeah, and one of the things I like to do too, and Ruth can wave at me or wave me off on this, but for Gen Xers that carry on at companies and tribes, if I get an influencer to take the training earlier and give either a testimonial or to introduce you to the group, and they're seeing this person perform really well, now I've got buy-in from someone that they have credit in, and that person they want to, well, I want some of that. If Blank is doing that, I want to be part of that too.
And
Yeah.
Susan said it's hard to get that information when you're not considered a part of leadership, not in the background meetings. And just rolling this back just a little bit to this idea of asking questions, when we are facilitating train the trainer, we spend a lot of time talking about needs analysis and what the stakeholders are looking for and how are we designing this training. Who is our audience? What exactly are we trying to get done here? But one of the things that I think we don't talk about enough is the fact that sometimes we make that sound too easy. It's difficult because, when you go back to the stakeholders and say, all right, why do you want this? What's going on? Like, I've even had requests like this for CE, believe it or not. And, we have a board of advisors and there's a lot of upper management and whatnot. And somebody had mentioned that they wanted to see CE on something really esoteric, something having to do with captives or whatnot. And I'm like, ew, bleh. But when I said, well, why do we need that? And I was met with this face of, because I just told you. And I think this happens a lot. Like, you're the trainer, go do it. Just go do it. But I don't want to spend so many hours designing a class, writing it, delivering it, getting it approved by regulators, only to have 4 people show up. So when we get this pushback, when we're talking to the stakeholders, I think it's difficult to stand your ground and say, I really need this information. However, I think it goes a long way to improving the quality of what we're trying to teach, because, and I can't remember if it was Ruth or Susan earlier that said that, you don't want to spend all this time teaching to realize this wasn't the issue. So, training involves everyone, but the trend that I'm seeing here, the common thread that I'm seeing here, the common frustration is that training is sort of dismissed in a way, relied on to fix things, but dismissed in terms of being an integrative part of the culture. So how do we fix this? How do we have more of these conversations? To Susan's point, how do we insinuate ourselves into what needs to happen?
Revolution. Sorry, just
Viva la revolution! Oh my goodness. Anarchy, for those of you who like Talladega Nights. Anyway, well, there's that. Being the squeaky wheel.
Yeah. It's easy for someone like me because I'm very close to the management team. And small organization, it's easy to do. In a carrier setting, it's a little tougher because you're getting sometimes orders from somebody in upper management way up the line, and you may not have access to just go chat with them about it. So if you're close to the person making the request, it's a lot easier to do. And then you turn on the charm, you pull out the sales skills, and you go visit with them.
Ruth says, I know some organizations have a training request worksheet, so they have to fill out those details. I love that idea. So we're going to pivot off of this. We've just had a 10-minute warning. They've just slashed your training budget by 30%. What is the first thing you would protect? And what is the first thing you'd get rid of?
Well, I'm protecting my salary. I'm just kidding.
I'm not kidding. That'd be my answer too.
I got to put beans on the banquet boards at home, but I would have to look at the priorities if I'm doing CEs what I can prioritize those to see what I really needed on that budget spend there. Um, the equipment's going to be okay for the most part and resources I have, but that if I'm doing Cs and stuff like that, they can cost a lot of money. I'd really want to look at, and I would really want to have the authority to say no to some things during the year versus it being forced on me, that I'm going to do this. And then, oh, by the way, 9 months in, you'd have no more budget.
Yeah. So speaking for my world, and may or may not reflect what you guys do, I've seen this in a couple of organizations, a few anyway, where learning is incentivized via gift cards or some other kind of monetary benefit. That'd be the first thing I'd cut. And the reason is because it doesn't matter. If someone wants to learn, they'll learn, and if they don't want to learn, they won't learn. So I'd just be like, yeah, we can save X number of dollars if we don't give out gift cards, or if we cut them in half and give smaller gift cards. Thing I'd protect, my learning management system. I gotta have my LMS. It's just so vital to the delivery. It's integrated into everything. So
Love it. I would protect my paid version of Chat GPT and Perplexity. What would I get rid of? Okay, fine. I would get rid of some of my subscriptions, like to Insurance Business or maybe my Wall Street Journal, but I have to have my tools. Oh, and Canva. Susan says Canva and Articulate must be saved. Yeah, I'm not giving up my Canva. No. So yeah. And Art says an education is its own reward. All right, what is Articulate?
It's the program. It's the program that I use to design courses. It creates the SCORM files, and then you can upload them into your LMS. And there's a free LMS attached to it. So what's wonderful about that for me is my temporary employees and contractors don't have access to our LMS because it's associated with our payroll and stuff like that. And so I assign courses to them through Articulate, through Reach 360.
Nice. I love it.
Yes.
Wait, it's Reach 360? Is Articulate same people?
Yeah.
So Total CSR uses that. I don't know if anyone's in the agency world, but it's pretty cool.
Does anybody else have the one thing that you would not give up?
I wouldn't give up Scribe.
What's Scribe?
Scribe is a tool in which it will help you when you're doing processes, especially when you're documenting like how to use a claim system. It will watch you and record your clicks and make your screenshots for you, and even do the step-by-step or try and do the step-by-step, and has AI built into it. Luckily, we have the enterprise version of it, so I can utilize it for all of our stuff internally.
I need it.
We use Tango, same beast, different company.
Yeah.
But I would never give that up.
Yeah, no. Especially if you're trying to document it, any kind of written process and a follow through with screenshots, it is a game changer because I don't have to take my own screenshots now. You just start it, do the process, it watches you, and you can even set up to basically narrate as you're doing it, or not narrate, but you can dictate the steps as you're doing it to speak to it while you're doing the steps, and it'll record what you're saying or try and put them in the steps along with it.
Right. I would not give up my site membership.
You beat Ruth to it. Love it. I'm surprised, Ruth, you haven't talked about ClassPoint, giving up your ClassPoint.
Oh, I mean, I could figure something else out, but it's so cost effective. It's like $100 a year or like $150. I mean, that's so far below the budget. My Diet Cokes cost more than that a year. So, that would be a whole nother conversation. But with that, I think we've got about 5 minutes and I've got a little happy So, Jen, if that's okay with you,
Mm-hmm.
I have got some really cool site stickers I would love to share. So, everybody is on the infamous wheel of names. Let's see. Let's see who it is. It's the amazing Chantel Roberts. Woo woo. All right, let's kick her off the list and go again. Where's my mouse? Okay. The real death. It's Zarin. Yay. Zarin, Chantel, y'all, before you hop off this call, direct message me a mailing address, please. That would be wonderful. And I guess, does anybody have any final comments from the panel? They want to share? Maybe? Yes, no?
All right. Well, I will. First, I want to thank Zarin and Greg for sharing their challenges and obstacles and things like that, because this is an odd thing to ask someone to be on a panel. You know, what are the things that bug you? What are the things that frustrate you? Because, you know, a lot of folks don't want to talk about this because it makes you look like you're complaining, and that's not what we're doing at all. We're talking about frustrations in terms of how we're overcoming them and how we're kicking butt. And I got to say, just from the comments, I think Zarin and Greg are both kicking some major butt. So thank you very much for being here today. And thank you, all of you, for being with us. And I, with that, release you back into the wild.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Happy holidays.
Great job, Rich.